This video is only part of an unpaid, unbiased, in-depth review from an average rider's perspective, so check out the rest in the link below at thegoodride.com. If this video helps, please consider subscribing and buying through our links, or even better, become a member on YouTube or Patreon. You'll get exclusive access to video review shorts as we test gear, along with a lot of other perks. So thanks for watching, and I hope this review helps. Welcome to the land of moderation and mediocrity. Well, most of the time. I'm James Beastie, and this is the Ride Algorithm. Next to it is the Shadowban, and next to that is the basic Uninc. I'll be primarily talking about the Algorythm and how it compares to the Shadowban, but I threw in the basic Uninc because this is a favorite as well. The Algorythm was a favorite in the past. Spoiler alert, these days I'm a little more preferential to the Shadowban, but both are excellent boards. So let's get into it. I wrote it with Union Atlas, Burton Kendos, and I also put the Ride Triads on and rode it with this as well. I've gotten this board over the years in a wide variety of conditions. Everything from a good bit of light, fluffy powder, some decent groomers, some excellent groomers. This time around, some really good spring snow that felt like midwinter. And when it came to powder this time around, I spent most of my time on the Shadowban because I was getting to know that. And they both have the same shape, camber profile, and setback on board. So I felt like one of these was enough to test powder with. And to give you a short summary, the Ride Algorythm this time around is a little bit more expensive, a little bit more damp, a little bit more aggressive version of the Shadowban, which is newer. And the Shadowban is a lighter, poppier version of that. And they both have the same shape, camber profile, side cut, setback on board, etc. They just have slightly different construction. So the Algorythm is just the damper, more aggressive version of these two. And it's still an amazing one-board quiver because you can ride this centered like a mountain freestyle board, but then you can get a lot of good setback on board that allows you to get much more directional float than you would from a centered stance twin, like the Ride Agenda and other boards out there that are just centered stance twins. Now, when it comes to sizing, this Algorythm fit me perfectly in a 57. It worked excellent for my size 9 boots, and it handled my 185 to 190 pounds really well. The Shadowban was great with my boots, but not as good with my weight. And I felt like all three of these boards fit me really well, including the Yes Basic Uninc over there. This was just a perfect matchup for my specs and against each other. Now, when it comes to the shape, this is kind of a directional twin. It has setback on side cut and setback on board, but it feels really centered, really good between the feet. It works really well if you just keep your weight centered and turn. But if you want to drive harder off the front foot, you can, or harder off the back foot, you can. It's just a very versatile ride when it comes to weighting yourself across the board. And same goes for the Shadowban and the basic Uninc. And when it comes to camber profile, you have a mellow camber that extends past the inserts that goes then into some early rise, and that's mellow as well. And it feels really stable like a camber board, but not catchy like a camber board, and I love that. So do all three of these boards. The Shadowban's the exact same camber profile. The Yes Basic Uninc felt like it was just a little more pronounced camber-wise and rocker-wise, but overall very similar. So very easy for the Algorythm and all these boards to skid a turn to 1 foot, flat base. It's great for all ability levels. Now, when it comes to edge hold, this has very good grip. It has kind of a multi-radius side cut, but it's not a disrupted side cut like you see on the Yes Basic Uninc next to it and a lot of other boards. But the Shadowban and the Algorythm gripped really well. I'd say the Algorythm held its edge better in uneven terrain because it was damper and it didn't buck out as easy as all three of these boards. But if you ride a lot of hard snow, it's probably still better to go with the basic Uninc because it has that aggressive disruption in the side cut near the bindings and it grips really hard in icy snow. These are very competent though. Now, when it comes to the flex, this has just kind of a medium flex, maybe bordering on medium stiff. It's a little easier in the tip and tail, but pretty consistent throughout. Same goes for the Shadowban. And then it's just a little softer with the basic Uninc. Now, out of all these boards, I would say the basic Uninc has the most spring back. When you push into it, it has the most return, and it's the easiest to access. But the Shadowban is so close it could go either way depending on how you're feeling that day and what you did when you were riding it. The Algorythm is the most damp out of the three, but it's not as easy to access that pop. It feels a little bit more dead than these two, where these have a lot more energy. And I like energy over dampness because I'm not a straight line. But if you like going faster and you want something to feel more damp when you do, you're gonna like this better than these boards here. I just say this takes a little more work to get this thing to pop in comparison to the Shadowban and yes, Basic Uninc. All three are easy to butter though. It's a little easier to butter the Shadowban, a little bit easier to butter the Basic Uninc, but this butter's really easy, and you have that early rise in the nose and tail, and that just gives you a little advantage when you start your butter. It gives you a little more easy leverage, and it makes it easier to butter than you would think for its flex. But getting this thing out in uneven snow, that's where the Algorythm wins, and it's a much better board for all-day resort riding than these two, and these two are no slouches by any means. Just being a little more poppy, a little more energetic underfoot, they react to uneven snow a little more. And the Shadowban can get a little more bucky and bouncy than the Algorythm, and the Yes Basic Uninc can do so even more. I would say in hard, micro bumpy snow, the Algorythm wins. The Yes Basic Uninc is a distant second, and the Ride Shadowban is really close to the Basic Uninc. But in wetter, messy snow, I think the Shadowban does a little better than the Basic Uninc, and the Algorithm's the best in all conditions when it comes to uneven terrain. Now, when it comes to speed and base glide, the base glide's pretty equal across these three boards. I would say maybe the Basic Uninc felt like it had a little bit better glide, but it's so close, it's really hard to tell. And I think it would vary condition to condition. Where the Algorythm really shines though is when you go to point it, it's much more damp. There's less clown shoe effect. There's less chatter throughout the board. So if you want a mountain freestyle twin that you can set back and powder, but you can also go pretty fast in, this is the one out of the three for sure. Now, when it comes to turn initiation and carving, this turns really quickly. I like the Algorythm and its quick turn initiation really well. I like the Shadowban's quick turn initiation, and I love the Basic Uninc's quick turn initiation. All three are just really fast edge to edge. And then when you get them onto the side cut and you commit to a turn, you can make all kinds of turning radiuses with this, and it's not going to balk or complain or make it hard for you to do so. It doesn't shine in any one type of radius turn, but it does them all very well, and that's all you can ask for with an all mountain board. I love this balanced side cut. I had fun making across the groomer carves. I had fun making down the line kind of drivey carves. Quick, energetic turns were fun. I like those a little better with the Shadowban and the Basic Uninc. But overall, it had good spring out of the turn if you put a lot of effort into it, and this is a satisfying board to carve. I liked the Shadowban and the Basic Uninc in good conditions a little better. I felt like the Basic Uninc had maybe just a touch more spring than these guys, and same day comparisons, same boots, same bindings, same runs. But overall, all three of these boards are really satisfying when it comes to making a turn. Now, when it comes to powder, I've had this in powder in the past, and I had the Shadowban in powder now. Both these boards do a great job when it comes to directional float. If you set this all the way back, you get a 22.75 inch stance width, which is a little wide, but doable. And you can get 2.25 inches back from center of board, which is excellent. That's the same as the Yes Basic Uninc, except it's a 22.5 inch setback on board. The Shadowban's the same as the Algorythm. Both have that excellent all mountain versatility, and both set back much further than most other all-mountain boards. There are only a few that set back more, like the Karua Auto, but this is more than the Jones Mountain Twin and lots of other all-mountain boards. More than the Manifest from K2. I think this is at the upper end of the all-mountain peer group in terms of directional float, and when you set it back all the way or as far as you can with your stance width, it's going to give you really good directional float and really change the personality of the ride. Now, when it comes to switch riding, all three of these boards just kill it either direction. It's not quite as perfect as, let's say, a true twin or an ASIM twin, but it's so close most won't care. I didn't. And I love riding this switch on groomers, and I had a time. When it comes to going big in the park, if you want to hit some big kickers, the Algorithm's the best out of all three of these, but the Shadowban and Basic Uninc are not bad either. They're just better for more medium-sized kickers. Not that I'm doing any of these. All three were great with my micro jumps. Riding the pipe is fun with this. I like the Basic Uninc a little better, but all three of these boards are really competent pipe riders and really fun to get in there with. Even if you're just like me and you like to go in and carve the walls. Jibbing, no thanks. So overall, I still really like the Algorythm. I just like the Shadowban a little more. I just like that pop, that energy. It just feels a little more my kind of ride, that average rider's kind of ride. But if you want something that is a little more damp and can go a little bigger, you have the Algorythm. And all three of these boards are just super recommendable. The Basic Uninc's already a favorite. It's a board I love and own and want to keep. The Shadowban is one too. It's an excellent all mountain board. The Algorythm isn't going to be a favorite, but man, it's such a recommendable ride. And if you're willing to sacrifice a little bit of pop and spend a little bit more money for more dampness, this is a great call. Giving advice on YouTube is very difficult because I need a lot of info from you to actually help. So if you want real advice, fill out the Me Harmony profile in the link below so I can help you properly.